Welcome to day 2. I am excited to be back here with you this morning for our breakfast session and with a great set of panelists. Today we're going to be talking about more of the granular state. Yesterday we started big with the shared spaces and really had that jumping off point of the grandeur and the awe of the very space we're in, the Music City Center. And now we're going in to the in-unit technology. So as the technology landscape continues to change, having the right technology in your units is going to make all the difference for success. And today we're going to be actually looking at the central benefits of technology as a jumping off point for the conversation. I'm excited for you to get to meet the panelists that are up here with me this morning. So I'm going to start right here with you, Mike. You can just give like a minute high-level introduction of who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Mike Branham. I'm the Senior Director of Sales and Customer Success for PointCentral. We're an Alarm.com company. I've been with the organization for about 7 years, but I've been in multifamily for about 20 years. Sort of fun fact, I'd helped co-found the industry's first sort of smart apartment solution called Remotely back in 2011. So it's really a treat to be at this event specifically and to see like how far we've come and to talk about where we're going.
Excellent. I'm Taylor Whitaker. I'm the founder and CEO of PropTech IQ. We're a third-party validation provider of property technology. I've been in the multifamily industry about 7 years. Started at Alliance Residential Company, leading their innovation department, then went on to BH Management and led their innovation department. During that time, we measured and really dove into some of the largest pilots at scale that had ever been conducted. And so kind of following that, I'd say, cadence through to our new organization, PropTech IQ. We've been now around for almost 5 years. I founded the company in 2020, and once again, we validate property technology, but we do so by looking at actual implementation data. So we work directly with vendors such as SmartRent, such as PointCentral, such as all of the above. They share with us where they're installed, what they've installed, and when those installations went live. And it's through our data, as well as our data partnerships, we're able to perform market analysis to tell you guys really what the true value of technology is, not just from a cash-on-cash perspective, but also from an efficiency perspective and the underwritten expenditures that you've already figured into your budgets to run that community successfully. We tell you how you're going to offset those expenditures based on these technologies being implemented. So I think that's me in a nutshell.
Good morning. I'm Matt Gillen. I'm a project manager at Bristol Development. We're local, based out of Franklin, about 20 minutes south of here. We specialize in ground-up Class A multifamily properties, Type 3, Type 5, and we're regional throughout the Southeast. Big markets for us are Jacksonville, Huntsville, Richmond, was Nashville before it got a little saturated. So but we have a project also in Columbia, which is about 45 minutes south of here, and we just recently opened up a project off of Dickerson Pike, which is kind of northeast Nashville, that opened up a couple months ago. So we still have a presence here, and I'm excited to mostly listen to what these guys have to say.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for showing up at 8 a.m. I know it's early, but you guys got some food, so that's good to see. Mitch Karen, been in the multifamily space for about 15 years. Originally started in PropTech, actually, building out a smart home automation system for the single-family operator space, now Invitation Homes. And then me and a few other guys started SmartRent. Not sure if y'all are familiar with that, but it's one of the larger home automation companies that does access control Wi-Fi now. I ran product development there, co-founded the company, did that for about 7 years. So built all the hardware and the software. And now I am advising a variety of PropTech startups. Most of them are still around the IoT, home automation space, and excited to share with you guys today. Thank you for coming.
As you can see, wide range of different perspectives from the industry and some people who have seen a thing or two and know a thing or two about in-unit technology. So as we dive in this morning, a little bit of fun here at 8 a.m. Do you recognize anything in this image that looks familiar? This is a movie shot from Space Odyssey, done, so many decades ago. Those look a lot like iPads, right? That they're looking at.
Yeah.
So it turns out that in 2011, Samsung presented this, a still like this, of Kubrick's 1968 film in an unresolved legal battle over Apple's handheld tablet patent as proof that iPhone didn't create it because it already existed in concept in that movie, oh so many decades ago. Also, just another fun fact about technology, Star Trek first aired in 1966, also in the 60s. Like, apparently they had all the great ideas in the 60s. And they're holding what looks very much like a flip phone, way before flip phones became a reality and then grew to become the cell phones that we know and love. I've got another one for you. Bet you didn't think you would see David Hasselhoff this morning, but there he is, because Knight Rider, his car, way back in the 1980s, did all of these fancy things to help him and assist him in his ventures that looks very much like a lot of the technology that's being developed in cars today and is becoming a reality. And then last but not least, I don't know if you remember Minority Report, I remember sitting in the movie theater and being like, what the heck is he doing with his hands? Like, we would ever play with air like that, but there he is with a gesture-based computer system, swiping and zooming through all of the screens a long time ago. So there's always this point where technology is new, someone's thought of it, and it's not entrenched yet, but as you can see, a lot of even the craziest ideas do come to fruition. And that's kind of what we're digging into here today, is like, what is the future of technology, especially within the unit? And we're going to use as our kind of framework for talking about it the central benefits of technology, because there has to be a reason why you choose it besides revenue. We'll table that one. So for the person renting the unit, it helps if it's smart. Does it provide automation or convenience through smart home features? Can it produce and create productivity by supporting efficiency or effective work tasks? Is it safe? A big one. Does it help ensure resident safety and the property security that even an operator is looking for? Is it connected? Does it provide seamless access to digital networks and communication? Is it green? Is it sustainable? Which is definitely showing up more and more as a value, especially in the younger demographics, as you heard last night in the keynote. And the integration of eco-friendly or sustainable technologies can be something that is marketed and has value. Is it healthy? Does it promote resident health and well-being? That's where you're going to see those air systems, air filtration systems, different health components. And then is it entertaining, which is all the way back to that first picture we saw of Stanley with a spaceship in Space Odyssey watching movies on an iPad. So those are the benefits of technology that we're going to kind of work through today with our panelists to talk about what is changing within unit technology. So as we dive in, we're going to start by exploring smart technology and looking at that intersection of the in-unit technology and resident preferences. So Mike, I'm actually going to start with you. What are you seeing as the future of in-unit technology when it comes to smart components and automation?
I think when we look at kind of I probably have the boring answer here, but I think when we look at in-unit, I think there's been so much movement in that space and then outside of the unit with common areas and then intercoms and video and cameras. So there's a lot out there. I think it's unifying the technology. I think that's really where this needs to go. We say it a lot, it's the platform over the device. And there will be devices that come and go. And that's a good thing for us. It advances the technology, but does it sync with what you're doing operationally? Does it make life easier for your staff, for your residents? So there's a lot here, but I think I'll sort of stop with that. But I think the future of in-unit to me is making sure you have cohesive, unified technology with the tech that exists outside of that unit door as well. So the resident, the staff of the building have this sort of seamless, frictionless interaction with the tech.
Thanks. Anyone else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, the only thing I'll say when it comes to, when I think of the term smart, I like to make sure the systems are integrated to the property management systems. And a lot of people are installing great hardware out there and great software that controls the hardware, but I don't think it's truly smart unless it's really deeply integrated into the day-to-day workflows for both leasing, maintenance, and obviously that requires the right, pretty much live integrations with the Yardi Real page and so forth. That's what I think is smart.
Are you doing much, Matt, with like chasing smart features? Like, where are you at with that?
We are, but we have some hesitation on it because, we were just talking about this before the panel. It seems like a one-stop shop that you don't implement and you don't trim out until the very end of the project. Mm-hmm. And if something goes wrong, it's an emergency. So we're trying to balance the risk of the potential emergency with making a one-stop shop with how can we responsibly diversify to keep things basic but smart. So thinking just smart locks to get into a unit rather than dumb keys. But then also keeping an access control system that ensures resident safety. Ideally, those would be connected together in our properties. We're not there yet. I look forward to when we are, but for us, it's about balancing that risk. An example is like if you have an issue with the plumbing material and you're a third of the way through construction, you can plan around that, manage around that. But if you have an issue with the delivery of access control for your building, that's all stop. Residents aren't safe. That needs to get fixed right away. That's a risk for us.
That makes sense. I'm just going to tack onto that. I think you brought a lot of things to light, which is that oftentimes owners are not looking at the technology until kind of the very end. And I think that's why it is an emergency, because we're not including the actual planning phase that really is required. I think Mitch saw this countless times. You guys were deploying 500,000 units. You guys have seen it as well. When owners come to the table with the last minute of, hey, this is what we've already got, at that point, it's a retrofit project, right? It's not really a new development because you're not able to incorporate some of those more, I'd say, technical things. But I do think at the end of the day, it's resident experience. You know what I mean? The future of in-unit tech is a seamless experience for the resident at the end of the day. But it is absolutely about managing risk. So how do we accomplish both? That's, I think, the biggest challenge that we're facing as an industry right now.
Yeah, and I'm hopeful you guys can speak to this because from where we sit, when a project has inception, it's 3 years, mm-hmm. and the last 3 years have brought about a ton of change in tech and what's available. But we have to put that in drawings, mm-hmm. and we have to get that out to our contractor, and they have to sign up all their subs, who sign up all their subs. Everybody has this vision moving forward, and by the time we're out there implementing, if the next 3 years is anything like the previous 3 years, maybe we'll talk about it, but future proofing is a big deal. And that's a challenge that we have.
I will jump right onto that with the future proofing, because that's the hardest part of any conversation about the future of tech. It moves fast and slow, because we did have an idea of a tablet in 1966. Now we finally have them. But still, it does feel like that with the rate of production that's necessary to put a building up. So if you could speak to what is your best future-proofing tip, especially when it comes to the smart side of technology, because I think there's the most changes there. Anybody can jump in.
Yeah, I'll just throw it out there. Agnosticism. Agnostic hardware.
Bringing the big words.
Or
right
agnosticism.
Pretty early for that.
I know,
word.
right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Non-proprietary.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Or if you're picking a vendor, make sure they are agnostic. So if you're whatever software vendor you're picking, make sure they support a wide range of locks and thermostats. But when we were talking about this earlier, it's like you have to put certain specs into your drawings. Okay, I'm going to put a deadbolt on the doors. I'm going to put this particular thermostat in. You can make changes to those models. I think we were in a meeting yesterday. Yeah, you can make some changes to the edge unit hardware up until the last couple of months. So yeah, you may pick it and may budget for it 3 years in advance, but just keep in mind that, yeah, the locks may change and thermostats may change, but you can make some decisions. You can change some decisions, pretty late in the game.
Yeah, I think you're choosing a platform over that device or that gadget, right? And that's it. Yeah. I'm not even going to try to say the word, but it is agnostic, and it is proven in the provider, and there's some assurance there and peace of mind that you're not having to, try to put your thumb on the dam and figure out, oh gosh, what's going to change by the time this goes live? If you invest in the platform, everything else will take care of itself.
So another thing I think then the platform helps with is this thing that has come up even in our conversations with centralization, where everyone is slowly, it seems to be moving towards a centralized model, and then the platform is a really big piece of that. Yes or no?
Yes.
You can't get people in remotely without a good access control system. And you can't remove on-site staff without a good security system in place.
Now, Matt, is that something you've thought of, trying to centralize more, having a platform that does even more for you, or is that like out in the future where more needs to come together?
It's out in the future. I think with projects that we are thinking about now that'll start in the next few years, so like Smart Rent, we've only got we do have a couple projects that have Smart Rent. None of them are done yet. So we're going to wait to see how that goes. And maybe we need a different platform. I don't know. But I think that we will be doing a lot more of that in the future, but we're hesitant to do it until we see proven success. And we'll take the data from other developers and all that good stuff, but we really prefer our own. And the project lifespan is 3, sometimes 4 years. Mm-hmm. And that's a hard thing to do in a constantly changing environment.
Mm-hmm. Taylor, because for you, when you look at that centralization model and you're running the numbers, have you seen that make a big difference in any way?
We have, absolutely. So, we can see the difference between a Bluetooth lock and a centrally connected, like Z-Wave lock that has a platform connected to it. And there's huge differences in the value that those locks can bring. That said, I think at the end of the day, whether I was at BH or Alliance, we knew Z-Wave was the medium that we were comfortable with. And so while I can tell you that, Kwikset and Yale and all these companies, they were coming out with new hardware every day, it seemed like, and trying to keep up with it, get out of here. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen. So what we figured was kind of similar to what Mike said, was how do we find a good partner and a good platform to essentially sync all this together? Because the hardware is going to change, but at the end of the day, the software, if we do this right, shouldn't change. And it should provide us that centralized glass pane where we can manage everything. Because if not, we're just adding more complexity and more work to our team, and it completely defeats the purpose of the investment to begin with. So it's important that as you approach these models of how do we centralize, this is not a half-baked thing you do. This is not a, hey, let's try it on 20 units and see if it works. No, you will not see a benefit at 20 units. You will only see the benefit at scale, because that's when you're changing your foundational systems operationally, and that's when you start to see those savings. But up until then, again, I think owners think they can do both, and many tried. I was one of those owners, for many years. Tried my best. We deployed 7 different vendors. And I can tell you that some of the vendors we deployed, I've had approach me, the management companies that took over, that like Vivint, for instance. We worked with them. They no longer are in multifamily. That's a huge issue, right? You sign all these deals, and then you find out the platform company is no longer in business. And they had actually auctioned off those contracts with Dwello. So, it pretty much put us in a situation where we felt like, well, okay, now we have to move forward with this way, or with this path. However, because we chose Z-Wave hardware, because we chose agnostic hardware, we were able to go in and say, you know what? We don't like that platform. We don't like that hub. We're going to go to PointCentral, or we're going to go to Smart Rent, and we're going to have them bring their hub in, sync to all of our hardware, and now we are no longer behooven to a platform company. We have future-proofed ourselves, and we have given ourselves adaptability as the market changes. But if you marry yourself to a platform like Latch, which is proprietary, which has absolutely no flexibility, then you're going to find yourself 3 years down the line going, man, this is some pretty antiquated technology. But that's the 30-pin, iPhone connector issue, right? We go back 10 years. How many owners took a bet and said, we're going to put iPhone connectors or iPod connectors in the unit, and then those were obsolete immediately, just about anyways, when the Lightning connector came out. So my point is that there are some things in the future you want to plan for, but it's important to understand that like Z-Wave as a medium, as it looks to Yale, Kwikset, any of the manufacturers, they are going to continue to build agnostic devices for that medium. So as long as you have any platform provider in that bucket, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. But the key is, again, understanding that if you don't choose from this hardware bucket, let's say you say, I want Bluetooth locks, or I want Latch, all right? Those are the issues. So I would just say, familiarize yourself with not just the agnostic choices, but also the proprietary choices. And if you choose to go proprietary, then of course, make sure you understand fully why you're making that choice and what the benefits are, just so you're not gonna find yourself down the road and in a worse situation. Does that answer your question?
It very much does. Well said. So we have this image up here as well that kind of finishes up this part of the conversation. It's looking at this smart property technology compliments of PointCentral, but giving more of this visual of everything that can be connected through those smart systems and the smart automation. And I want to finish with that, in that looking down the future of what you're looking for with what connects and how the systems work. What's your best advice that you would give people to think about for the smart technology? And then for you, Matt, what have you noticed so far as you've been digging into researching it? Because everyone in this room is at a different point of considering the smart automated side of a platform. I'll start with you, Mike.
I think things have changed so much the last several years for the better. But I think we all have a different definition of what smart home or smart property technology is. So I think I would challenge the owner, operator, or developer. What problem are you trying to solve with technology? And then understanding that the smart prop tech ecosystem has grown, and with the right providers is unified. So you don't have to have these disparate technologies to solve a problem. Otherwise, what you could do potentially, and we've seen this, is to solve one problem, you create 5 others. And now you have a very fragmented environment, and you wonder, like, gosh, why? I wish we would have done this to start, and look for more of a centralized solution. So I'd start with that.
Nail on the head.
Yeah, I'm betting on 2 things. One is, as we said, centralization. We don't have to talk too much more about that. I think everybody knows what's going to happen with that. But also sustainability, especially in markets where laws are coming down the line, like New York, for instance, has a pretty strict law, local law 97. This is the first year. You have to reduce energy by a significant amount. And a really easy way to do that is by implementing the right technology, not only in the units, but in the building. Like thermostats alone, if they're programmed correctly and you give the resident the right amount of features to reduce the energy there, that can hit the benchmark needed to abide by those new laws. And those new laws are just not in New York. I mean, they're in Colorado, they're in California. So again, as Mike said, project by project basis, maybe in Alabama, it may not be this year. So if you have a project in California, that's an issue. But I'm betting big on that kind of being the next wave, not only in the building, but also with the unit, and presenting that to residents in a really easy and almost gamified way so they can be incentivized to help you reduce your energy in your buildings.
Yeah, I think 2 things that we want to look at more closely, and that is the residents' desire for this. I think we can all agree that residents desire to have smart technology, but like, to what extent? And is that a regional thing? Like you said, the market is different in California than it would be in Alabama. And then the other thing, besides just will this put them over the line to sign a lease, is will this save them money and save us money in operations? I think remote control of lights and HVAC is a good way to explain to a resident that your utility bills will be lower. And then there's any other number of ways that would benefit us as the folks who are managing the property on a grand scale. It would save us money too. So does it cause a resident to sign a lease, and can we explain to our shareholders and to the residents that it will continue to save them money throughout? And it's data that we have not fully wrapped our heads around yet.
Mm-hmm.
That's fair. It's a hard data set to wrap your head around.
Yeah.
I mean, you have a lot of options. How do you ensure what is right in what market? And so I can tell you that that's actually one of the reasons that we exist. So we are actually trying to help you guys better define that. And that's not a flog for us. That's mainly just because we recognize, I've worked with Mitch, I've worked with Mike, we're working with every provider in the space, and it's the same question everybody's asking is, what are the differences per market? There are differences. And I can tell you that seeing the implementation data that we have from all the providers, I can tell you that we know specifically that the retention and conversion impact of smart home technology in Florida is significantly different than in Alabama.
Yeah.
Significantly different. And then you look at Texas versus California, energy costs are different. Everything is different, right?
And Florida has however many different submarkets.
That's exactly.
Florida's a microcosm of our country. You could find any kind of different resident in any kind of different place in Florida.
That's absolutely right. And that's where I think really, understanding the market you're in, and there are plenty of partners out there that can help you guys understand that market. And it may be that you're not in a market where it makes sense for smart home automation, but it may make sense to go ahead and put a managed Wi-Fi system in. It may make sense to put monitored security in, right? Ultimately, at the end of the day, every market is different. The expectations for residents all over the country are different. And that's the beauty of America. But at the end of the day, we still have an obligation to provide a seamless experience no matter what age, no matter what demographic. These are, our priorities. How do we make that resident experience seamless and excellent across the board? And so again, just looking into who's your partner, who are you looking at? SmartRent, right? You're talking with SmartRent?
For one of our projects, yeah.
I would ask them. Give me information. I mean, I'm sure Mitch can tell you he's been asked millions
I don't work
of times.
there anymore, so don't ask me.
Yeah. He's like, not my problem anymore. But no, for real, ask them. Say, tell me, what other implementations have you made in this market, and what are those assets charging for this technology? Understand whether they're seeing that success that you're curious to see. But really, the vendors are the ones that have the data on it, not the owner-operators, because none of the owners have tracked it the same way. So if you ask the vendors, typically you can get a pretty clear answer.
Yeah, and I should probably qualify too about our company, Bristol. We do probably 3 starts a year, and we have about 18 employees. So we hire out everything.
Okay.
So when we talk about how we're designing our projects to be smart and connected and all that kind of stuff, we have consultants that do that for us, that we trust, that we've worked with for years.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I guess the question I would have is, is there a limit to what we should how much we should lean on our consultants, and how much, just given how lean our operations are, do we need to be the holders of that information? And where, maybe you have a biased opinion on this, but where do we draw the line? Because it's, like you said, it's complicated. Everything's new, and we don't want to get it wrong.
So I'd actually like to figure that out. I'd love to ask Mike and Mitch. I mean, you guys work with more owner-operators and have worked with more owner-operators. Do you have more success working with third-party consultants and helping those owners achieve their goals? Or do you have more success working directly with the owner to help them achieve their goals?
Yeah, I think it depends on their experience with the tech and what problem they're trying to solve. Some come to us with a very, very clear vision of, we want to solve for X, Y, and Z, and we want to incorporate A, B, and C. Others say, tell us what you got. And so we're sort of drawing it up from the whiteboard where it's clean, right? And that's fine too. But I think it really depends on what their goals are, what their experience is with the tech, and how we present the possible solutions and the return, which is incredibly important. I think we're at this phase now where the early adopters have moved, and now in the adoption curve we're in the big middle, and the big middle is saying prove it, and that's what we're doing.
Yep.
I would agree with that, the prove it phase. Yeah, that's where we are.
The prove it phase in the big middle. I like that. Okay, to move through a few more of the components of technology, do you see any new developments in the future, especially in the unit, that enhance safety, or anything that you are hearing a lot of people talk about or that matters? I'll start with you, Mitch.
Yeah, well, we were talking about centralization, if properties do go to this fully, call it, non-staffed model, residents are simply just going to want more safety around them. They may not need, the same security system as a luxury home, but they're going to want more. They're not only going to want a strong access control system in the building and potentially some, strong video surveillance, but they're going to want potentially a security system in their unit as well. It's just a simple fact that you take people off property, they may feel less safe. I'm not saying that's like a direct correlation, but that could happen. So I would say, betting on seeing more, motion sensors, door contact sensors, and just overall better security in unit for the residents to make them feel more comfortable.
Thanks. Anybody else want to weigh in on safety?
I think in addition to that, you have to give them a clear line of communication to help when they need it. Because I think that's the frustration most residents have today that I've heard, because we survey, we want to know, right? What are they thinking? What are they feeling? And it's the resident that feels they have no voice, the resident that feels like when they are uncomfortable or they need something changed, that they don't have a method to properly and really clearly articulate that to the staff. So I think in addition to, yes, we want to enhance access control, but we also want to enhance just the easeability of having a normal conversation with our tenants and understanding what are their challenges, what makes them, unhappy, what's keeping them up at night, right? And so I think in addition to having that access control, if you compare that with some sort of seamless communication where the residents have the attention to detail that they need from that staff, especially if they're offsite, right? I mean, where do you go? What happens if you get double billed for your rent and you're like, you don't have money to pay any other bills and you need to talk to somebody and there's nobody in the office? I'm just hypothetically speaking, it could be a number of situations, but you're putting the resident in a situation where they don't feel they have someone to go to because there's no one on site. And so as we rolled out things like self-guided tours at Alliance and BH, that was a challenge because it really created a separation. And we're in the people business at the end of the day. So it's important that we think about that and keep that in mind and don't get lost in the technology. So I think safety has multiple facets to it, but hopefully that gives you some color.
That's something I hear Mike say a lot, is that we're in the people business and humanizing the technology really matters. And it dovetails directly into the third benefit, which is connection. And if you were at the keynote last night, the connection and communication styles of all the different demographics is changing. It isn't, there was a joke said something like, where it was don't call me, text me, and then it was don't text me, like, or call me. I don't want either of those. I expect to find you other ways and other types of communication. I kind of feel like if you are marketing towards like those millennial or Gen Z demographics, looking at your communication factors in your system really matters. Are you seeing that? And are you seeing new developments in that can be considered?
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. Like this is probably a whole different panel, is communication style between resident demographics, right? My son is now texting me from upstairs, like, hey, what's for dinner? I'm like, you can come downstairs, we can talk about this, right? So what we're seeing, I think we're able to leverage tech to anticipate needs now. And I think that's where the connectivity piece comes in, is how do we get more prescriptive and proactive with technology to anticipate the needs so the call doesn't happen in the first place. Mm-hmm. I think that's a big element to this, and it's already happening, and it's happening beautifully, especially for centralized services where they don't need someone there because the technology is enabling this prescriptive, proactive, sort of preventative opportunity to not have to necessarily engage because the problems aren't coming up as often.
Mm-hmm.
I think for us, we have adopted managed Wi-Fi on all of our new properties, and that's been a way that we anticipate will be really good for connectivity, just in the sense that you can use that same exact network that's connected through wireless access points throughout the community, use it in the amenities, use it by the pool, use it in your unit, and just have that be seamless. We also have that going in a garden-style community down in Florida. That I have some more question marks on, because we will establish certain hubs around the pools, but you can't walk. I mean, it's a 25-acre site. We're not covering 25 acres with a wireless signal. So how is that going to work? And we talked a little bit, I think, one of the panels, or one of the sessions yesterday talked about DAS systems and cell phone issues, but we can use Wi-Fi calling now with managed Wi-Fi, which is great at a dense urban wrap. Maybe not so much at a garden style where you're crossing through those thresholds. But those help us a lot. And then one of the other things I wanted to talk about, because you said we want to not talk about revenue. I have to talk about revenue. I wouldn't have a job if we didn't talk about revenue. So we talk a lot about what can we add to the resident experience, what kind of new technology can we implement and have it be a good feature for the resident. I think that there's a lot that we can look at retroactively too and say, what's obsolete? For example, our standard unit plans include Cat 6 and coax to the units. And they have probably 2 coax drops, probably 4 or 5 data drops. And with a managed Wi-Fi system, you really don't need the data drops. Using a reference to the project that just opened a few months ago here in Nashville, it's leasing up like crazy. It's like 75% leased, and it's only been open for maybe 6 months, which is great. We're super excited about that. We decided to take a look at a unit-by-unit basis of the usage of the internet services and video services. And does anybody want to guess what percentage of our residents signed up for video services? Any guesses?
0.
It's 0.
Yeah.
Well, how many signed up for
0.
internet though?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them, because they had to, because it was managed Wi-Fi. But my point is, 0% of those folks have signed up for video services. And if you want to do a little napkin math, conservative estimate is you got 50 feet of coax cable on every single unit for $200, $1 per foot installed, 200 units, $10,000. $10,000 that has absolutely no function. Same with the data drops. You don't need 4 or 5. Some communities need 0 if you're all Wi-Fi. Our Huntsville communities have a lot of DoD employees. They probably need one. I don't want to be in the position where we're waiting on DoD to innovate and not require a hardwire connection. So, but same napkin math. Assume $1 a foot installed, and you're saving 200 linear feet on cabling for Cat 6. It's just not necessary. Between those two, you're looking $20,000, $30,000 just off the bat, just stuff that's not necessary. So I love the fact that we look forward and we look at what can we install, what can we implement that's gonna help our residents, but we also have the information to look backwards and say, what are we assuming just based off of decades of experience that we have to have that actually doesn't get used, and what can we get rid of and save money that way? I think there's opportunities there that we probably need to talk about more.
Excellent point.
Well said.
Excellent. And so from there, moving on to just get to a couple more of the benefits. I'm curious if you're seeing the same things with green or sustainable technologies or the thermostats. Like, what do you see for the future of in-unit there with the research that you're doing?
I can start. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier. I think there's a ton of thermostats that have been installed. My guess is somewhere around 1 million, 1.5 million thermostats have been installed, multifamily. They're pretty basic still. They're smart thermostats, but they're being basically used. And what I mean by that is they're not tapping into more advanced functionality like demand response and other gamification functionalities that can actually move the needle in terms of savings. Like, yes, sure, a resident can remotely control it with their phone and they can maybe control it through Alexa, but you got to figure out how to make those thermostats be more advanced and beefed up power-wise. They have a lot of other functionality that's not being leveraged right now because you may not have the right vendor that you've chosen. So when you're picking the smart tech out there, as Taylor was saying, pick the right vendor that's enabling the hardware to do this advanced functionality. So do your due diligence who you're picking. Make sure that you're not just buying a Honeywell thermostat just because it's a Honeywell, or you're not buying a Nest just because it's pretty. Make sure what you're buying actually has key functionality that is going to be what the residents want. The younger generation wants the better functionality out of these thermostats. They don't want to just remotely control it. They want to be able to tap into advanced functions.
Yeah, I agree with Mitch. That hardware, is it providing the insights that run back to your software, and who's it benefiting? And usually it's the triple win, right? The resident, the staff, and the building. Like that's the goal here. It's absolutely possible. It's happening today. In terms of health or green, I should say, working and partnering with the utility is a thing now with demand response and even AQI. We're seeing residents that are asking about air quality in their units. So those are all, I wouldn't say future, like it's not really what's next, it's what's now. Like that's happening now.
Thanks. Okay, so to move on, because you guys are providing excellent information, we're going through a lot here. As far as the unit itself, obviously a lot of units are going to be a little smaller. It's not like we're doing house or home technology here, but do you see specific areas where the biggest potential is, or for both consumer demand and then also even the revenue input in that in-unit technology? Anybody can weigh in.
I'll leave it short because I don't have any good information to give other than I feel like it's the kitchen. We have electronics, we have plumbing, we've got everything in the kitchen. We know our residents spend a lot of time in there. You heard yesterday, even Gen Z cares about the kitchen. And at least as far as our projects go, we do nothing as far as smart technology related to kitchen, either appliances or just operability in there. So I feel like something will come in that space.
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have any theories on design of the unit itself, but one area I'm really interested in is water. Mm-hmm. I think there's, because HVAC is, you have a thermostat and you have one area where HVAC goes in and out, really, and you're in a small apartment. Water is coming from all different parts of the unit, obviously in the kitchen and the bathrooms, and there's not a lot of great insights on what's happening with water right now. And I think there's some really cool tech out there that is providing those insights. The leak detectors can only do so much, like little hockey pucks. Water hits that, it might be a leak, it may not be a leak. But there's some other really great tech out there that's just maturing to the point where it can provide really good insights on what's going on in the unit water-wise to provide the resident with not only insights, but provide the property with, really good data on, hey, is this resident using all the hot water at 8 a.m.? Is this a leak behind the wall? So that's where I'm really interested in the future in unit, is what's going on water-wise.
Awesome. Thanks for that. Anybody else want to weigh in?
Agreed on water, and I have a couple nuggets for us on water here in a few minutes. I think resident insight and awareness, they want that customization experience that come with maybe what their friends or family might own in an owner-occupied world. They want to be able to customize, whether that's scenes or interaction with their voice assistants or whatever that may be. So I think that's an ongoing thing on the in-unit piece to the resident side.
Okay, actually, I'll skip over you, Taylor, for 1 second, because I'm going to go right to a fun question as we wrap up before we get to the sponsor presentation. And this is literally your Space Odyssey moment. What is the wildest, craziest in-unit technology that you think is going to be something that we are all using in the future? This is your moment to predict the iPad, to predict the cell phone. No pressure.
That's a heavy question. I'm like, okay, all right, let's think about that.
Take it away, Taylor.
Yeah, okay, so I really think that what I've observed, because I've been in the multifamily industry, like I said, about 7-8 years, what I've observed is really just the streamlining of everything. I mean, I very much picture that typical management companies as we understand them to exist today, they will be obsolete within 15 years. I don't believe that people managing these assets is the future. I believe technology managing these assets in every capacity, whether that be water, whether that be data, whether that be, I mean, literally everything that's on this graphic right here. Energy management, video, water, everything is going to be managed remote. And so it's going to be very, very much like Space Odyssey, right? Like you walk in and the environment adapts around you because everything is seamless and connected. And with our phones attached to our hips most of the time, I think there's a lot of emphasis on how can the phone become an extension of that experience, mainly not even having to touch it, right? So just the presence of this device. And I mean, I know there are systems that exist today that do that. They say, okay, you've arrived within a geo-fenced area, and because you've done that, we're gonna set off this group of automations, right? But imagine when the community has sensors all over and knows that you are walking through and where you're at, what you're doing, how it can better serve you. When you walk up to your mailbox, it just opens for you because it can feel your phone. It knows your phone's there, it knows you're there, right? So I don't think that what we're looking at right now is the end all be all. I think these are the building blocks of the future of what multifamily will become. But owners, they're not happy spending 3 to 4% on management fees. And so the single biggest thing I see happening in the next 15 years is with the technological deployment and that full automation, we're going to see management fees drop down to like 0.5% to 1%. And so like I said, I don't think management companies that are third party only, they're not going to be able to survive in that climate. And with AI currently accelerating at the rate it is, I mean, there's no reason to believe that we're not going to get there sooner than 15 years down the road. But I think it's a fully touch-free, humanless experience, unfortunately, as I'm a people person. I like people, right? But, the younger demographic, they just want on-demand when they want it. And that's, I think, operationally speaking, what makes the most sense cost-wise. So, anyways, hopefully
That's your theory.
Yeah, that's my theory.
Anyone else have a theory?
I have a less broad one. Yours was pretty broad, I feel, Taylor.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you guys saw the news. I live in Phoenix area. Amazon is literally, I think just a couple of days ago, got approval to do drone delivery out of a hub in the west part of the valley, called the Valley. I'm betting on the next wave of developments. It's going to take a while, where there will be kind of these boxes that are on your patio that the drone will deliver your packages to.
It's so weird. You literally had that written down last night as my
Did I steal it?
patio delivery
steal it?
by drone. Yeah,
I was
did, but I had another.
I was looking at your notes earlier.
I didn't. I actually wasn't going to say it because it's so crazy.
I actually don't think it's that crazy though. I mean, like packages is still a massive issue in multifamily. Fetch is cool. Package lockers are cool. It's all cool until Christmas time, right? And that is a nightmare. And drones can solve that.
I like it. So you're both doubling down on the same prediction. Very interesting.
I had a second one. It maybe not quite as far fetched. We work with a gym equipment manufacturers out of Europe, and they have just created a beta version of an AI health check system that does a full body scan. And I don't know, it's weird. It's crazy. It costs about $16,000 for one of these, and we're putting it in one of our properties that's in development right now. My prediction is that and it's driven by AI, which is, so it kind of uses your historical data to tell you if you're leading a healthy lifestyle or whatever. I feel like this current generation and future generations are going to be obsessed with longevity and health. And as that technology becomes more and more available, that $16,000 price tag is probably going to come down enough to make that palatable for an in-unit experience.
Health check.
So one of the things we talk about is health. I think that AI-driven health check-in kiosk could become a standard unit thing for residents to check in.
I love that idea. That is one of the central benefits of now technology. Can it help with the health? And I can definitely see that happening. So.
Yeah, I'm interested to see where biometrics go. There's a lot happening there that I think can make access more frictionless. And I'd say AI as a complementary tool for security, and how can we leverage AI to protect our assets, protect our residents in a way that makes them feel safe. And perhaps I'm not about people replacement, but sometimes you have like the security guard that's driving around, and that can sort of be timed, so I think there's a complementary piece to that with camera and AI.
Love it. Okay, I appreciate all of those predictions. You're now, it's officially in the books to what you've said. And I appreciate your time here on this panel. Now we're going to transition, because events like this, sessions like this, your breakfast can't happen without a sponsor. And I'm very excited to hear what Mike has to say from PointCentral as to what they're developing and what he has to share this morning.
Great. Well, thank you for that. So I just fire away here. First of all, thanks everybody for coming, especially in a town where there's so much to do to keep you up at night. So the fact that you all made it here is impressive, and I'm grateful to be here with you all. Let's view this as just an extension of our conversation, really. I've been to a number of these events. I don't want to bore you with PowerPoint slides or brag too much, but I will throw a couple humble brags in just so you get to know who I work for and our why for not just being here, but for the technology we're providing. So really it's about the unified experience. So we have this state of smart building, right? And there's a number of providers here. A lot of providers are providing wonderful things for our space. But you see it's sort of in different segments, right? We have our property management software systems. We have self-guided tours and scheduling, access. There's a lot out there. So if I'm in your seat, this is probably what I see, right? It's a little bit blurry today because there's been this influx of technology that's, I don't want to say invaded our space, like it's actually helped our space. But how to sort of sift through that if I'm in your chair is probably challenging. It's probably why you're here. It's probably why you go to events like this, just to learn more and figure out, how do we do this, right? How do we do it? So let me just introduce you to us really, really quick here. So this will be my humble brag slide, so bear with me. I'm with PointCentral. We're a wholly owned subsidiary of Alarm.com. We were talking about the platform, and the provider and the service and the importance of those things. I think we've all probably had kind of the nightmare stories. We've had rescue business of like, hey, I put this in and this company's out of business now. What do I do? That's a problem, right? This isn't. When I said 20 years in multifamily, I started in the ILS world. If you put a digital ad up on xyz.com and that company goes out of business, you're going to be okay, right? You put several $1 million worth of hardware in and try to have it interact with your property management software. You get your whole team to buy in and actually, change your whole ecosystem to this new platform, and it goes away. You've got a big problem. That phone's ringing, right? So I say that, because Alarm.com, our parent company, has been in business for 22 years and deploying to the tune of over 9 million properties, whether that's single family homes, multifamily homes, vacation rentals, commercial spaces. we have experience doing this. This is what we do. We've got over 100 million devices that are connected, which has generated over 300 billion data points just last year. So, those are big sort of fancy numbers, but what does it tell us? That we have experience with hardware-software interplay. And just one of those things is hard. Hardware's hard. Software's hard. How do you do it together? You have to have a proven provider that's committed to doing that. And we've done it to the tune of 9 million units or properties in over 60 countries, primarily here in the US. So our focus is on being a long-term stable provider that you can rely on, that also offers premium service. So, we talked a little bit earlier, how do we even define this thing? I had somebody, it was just kind of funny actually, like we asked like on a panel, like, what do you define as like smart home? And somebody said, well, the clapper, like from the 90s. And I'm like, well, that's kind of funny, but it's kind of true. Like I remember that commercial. So some folks just view it as being able to turn your lights on. And in a single family home, for your house or mine, it's kind of easy because there's maybe 2 users and one overseer, if you will, right? In our space, in multifamily, we have to unify and simplify the management of these devices across a portfolio. So it has to be built for the enterprise. So you have to have the architecture and the infrastructure to be able to do that, whether it's a group that's putting on one building for 50 units or a portfolio that's got 80,000 units. It's got to be built for that, right? And that's what we do. So I'm borrowing the slide that we used before, but again, it's sort of a definition slide to say what's possible, because it's no longer lights, locks, and thermostats. We should be expecting more from our smart property tech providers, because we can now solve for these different icons that you see here. And so that's really where we're focused. So let's look at the timeline here for a moment. Back when we started remotely, when I started remotely 14 years ago, again, it was lighting. That's really where things started. And a few years after that, we had smart home devices for rental properties. I remember being at a conference somewhat similar to this one. I won't name what it was. And the narrative was, oh, that's way out in the future. That's way out there. And we're like, it's coming faster than you think, right? So it was really viewed as more of a resident amenity and something that could help with rent lift. And the whole time, like my thought was, no, this is really asset protection, risk mitigation, operational efficiencies. The resident component absolutely is there, and it lives there and will always be there. That's important. But if you're adopting for that reason as a primary, I think you have to like really evaluate like the other whys into why we do this, right? So, go to like 2018, 2019, and it became more than a resident amenity. The technology, kind of Moore's law is in play here. The technology is moving so fast that it's now adoptable for more than just your house or mine. We started to have conversations with groups that are saying, hey, we know this is the future. We want to move now. We want the advantage. We want the differentiation. We'll be first movers. And then the pandemic hit, right? And that was a forcing function in a lot of ways that sort of supercharged the impact of technology because we had to. We had to figure out how to get folks to look at the model unit because we didn't have staff there or they didn't feel safe in tight space. And then we had this like epiphany of like centralized services of, wow, actually we can do this and perhaps repurpose the impact of our staff to focus more on community engagement and resident retention. So it wasn't necessarily a displacement function. It was more of like, wow, we're really rethinking the model. And what I love about that is, the last couple of years, we have people coming to us that are like VP of Smart Building. We have an IoT committee that wants to learn more about your product and solution. Like these titles didn't exist pre-2020. And so when we have this now we have folks asking really, really good questions about, hey, how does your smart property technology help us manage water and HVAC? And that's what this solution can do for you, right? So if we look at today, it's not just the devices, but it's integral to the success of the community, and it's now a strategy and not a concept. And that's why it's really exciting to sit up here today, right? I'm going to go by a couple of these because if I was told I'll be tackled if I go over time. So the PointCentral difference, powered by Alarm.com, is very similar to some of the other providers. We'll take the hardware and look at strategic hardware that works, so that that we can count on, that we like. It's been vetted, and run it over a dedicated cellular network, right? So dual path is absolutely an option. There's a lot of narrative around Wi-Fi, and some of it's fantastic for the residents, and they're all streamers now, and they expect it. Putting it on top of thousands of smart devices is the sole connectivity piece. I maybe question some of that, right? So this is 9 million units over cellular. It works. We're going to run that over the Alarm.com cloud, put it on the enterprise dashboard, and connect it with your property management software. Can you do it without a property management software integration? Yes, for groups that want to do that. Most come to us and say, hey, this is home base. This is what we live in 90% of the time. It's got to integrate. And it should, and it will. So, part of the thing that I've seen that's moved here is that when we started talking about smart tech a handful of years ago, it was sort of like Z to A. It was in the unit and worked its way out. And I think the pandemic sort of forced us to think about this A to Z. It's how to, whether it's staff, residents, package delivery, meal service, how do they enter the building? And then the in-unit part is kind of easy now, to be honest. But how do we solve for, which we do at PointCentral, perimeter entrance, garage, intercom, the unit access, and then common areas? All of those things should live on the same platform. And I think you mentioned that earlier, Matt. Like, we got to get there. We're there. We're there, and that's exciting to share with everyone that we're at that point now where we can. Every property is a fingerprint. They're all a little bit different. So on the design side, we have to sit down and say, okay, what do you want? What do you want to accomplish? And we'll put it together for you. Or on the retro side, is it takeover, or do you have new problems that need just different solutions, where you had to add a gate because you had a lot of folks that were coming to use the pool, whatever the situation may be. So, access management now, it has to focus on security, simplicity, and unification. Like that's where you win in access, is part of the smart home ecosystem. Like I said earlier, the in-unit stuff is kind of easy. At this point, most residents they'll interact with the lock and the thermostat more than anything. They'll interact with the lighting. There's not as much operational benefit to you, but it is a nice to have for residents, and it allows some customization. Mitch, you mentioned this water sensors. There's three legs to the stool to get into smart home. On the unit side, I'd say get the lock, get the thermostat, and water sensors, and integrate it all, because the water is where it's sort of sneaky, right? Like, you don't know about the problem until it's already a big problem. And so the sensors allow you to, again, have this preventative measure in place, so you get the notification to maintenance before it becomes something. Every developer, owner, manager I've spoken with has a nightmare story about water. And the one that just knocked me off my chair, because I'm a baseball guy, is like a $3 million baseball card collection was ruined from water that dripped from above and got into the resident's closet below. And there was like a Mickey Mantle card in there. And I didn't want to hear, I'm like, oh my gosh, let's get sensors immediately. But you can't get that card back, So that was horrible to hear. But that happens everywhere, right? Like, your water story sucks. It's no fun, and it creates a disaster for everybody to have to react to, when it should really be a proactive or even preventative. A $30 hockey puck sensor can solve for a lot of these things. Just a couple more as I continue on my humble brag tour here. I think we have to look at in-unit energy management, and not just the thermostat switching into a vacant unit mode automatically through Yardi when the resident moves out. That's happening today. But what's also happening today is providing more awareness to the resident on their consumption. And sometimes you don't know that you're using a lot until you're made aware of it. So for our residents that are super green and super aware and want this data, their behaviors can change once they're provided data around consumption. Same goes in terms of benefit for the asset and for the maintenance team, or the owner, the on-site team. If we're providing notifications around HVAC performance, there's an opportunity to do something about that, right? So if Unit 102 is trying to achieve a 73-degree set point, and it's been at 71 for 2 hours, it's working really hard, that's costing real dollars to someone, but there's also a problem with that system. Usually you don't know about that until a resident walks down with a really high bill and says, I'm not paying this because it's your problem, or you have an altogether breakdown. with that particular unit. You know, Mitch still lives in Arizona. I used to live there. You know, a resident that's got a broken AC system in the middle of July, you're probably paying for a hotel until you get that fixed, right? Because they cannot live without air conditioning in that space. It won't happen. So part of the solution that we offer. Now, water, I agree, water is a problem. We talked about it a little bit, but it's now graduated beyond just the sensor. What we're offering now is smart water valves and flow meters that can actually give you real insight into flow detection. So think about that toilet that runs for 30 days and no one knows, or that leak that you don't know was creating mold until you found out it was a bigger problem from a resident perspective, or the staff picked up on it. Okay, so there's now technology that is part of the smart property tech ecosystem that gives you more insight into water. There's real savings there. There's real risk mitigation involved in that. That's what we're offering. Rounding third here, self-guided tours, is sort of a staple to this now, especially if you're looking at centralized services, whether that's in the multifamily space or this really fast emerging build-to-rent space. Being able to offer a self-guided tour it's not just important to the business, but it's also what the resident wants in most cases. Most prospective residents want to walk the property and tour the unit without somebody sort of reminding them of all the points around it. It's kind of like that. It's kind of like buying that car. You don't want the guy to follow you around and tell you about all the benefits. I've done my research. I'll come to you when I need you. It's very simple, similar now in the touring world. They just want that self-guided experience. And the staff has to be able to say, okay, who's on our property and how do we know that person's the right person to be there? So you have to have that solution that provides that security and peace of mind for all stakeholders. How am I on time? I'm there.
You're there.
So do it at the enterprise level. Make sure that your provider has a portfolio level management system, and that it's a simplified single platform that brings in all of the tech needs that you have into a single solution. So thank you for your time and for your attention today. And thank you, panelists and Heather, for putting this all together. Thank you.
There's plenty more to talk with Mike about at the PointCentral booth, because he gave you guys the high level view. And I really want to quickly give a round of applause to the panelists for everything that they shared with us this morning. And thank you for your time.